Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of LegalEx Live. I am so proud to be here. I'm your host, Mafe Yunam Velasco, and just to share a little bit of background of what LegalEx Live is, it is a show that seeks the opinion of seasoned legal professionals about the current legal landscape in the Philippines and how it should and does affect everyday life and the everyday Filipino. And I am so honored to introduce to you my co-host, the main founder of LegalEx, the amazing JP Lazatin, and of course, attorney Gino Jacinto. Welcome, guys. I'm excited to have our first episode of 2021. And how amazing to start it off with such a powerful, inspiring woman and to hit off Women's Month too. So, how have you both been?
Oh, I've been good, just keeping busy. I was able to catch up with Gino yesterday. We had a good time.
Yeah. Thanks for the introduction, Mafer. Looking forward to today. Very excited to talk to Counselor Bacani.
Yes, and speaking of the inspiring woman that we have today, let's welcome her on the show. Without further ado, let's welcome attorney Bacani. Hi, Counselor Krystle Bacani. Hello.
Hi. Thank you, Mafe. Hi, Gino. Hi, JP.
Hello, Counselor. Thank you for joining us today.
And of course, I am very honored to meeting you right now and just inspired of what you've done so far. Please do share with our audience on LegalEx Live a little bit of your background so that they can get to know you and the empowered woman that you are today.
Hi, so I'm Krystle Bacani. You can call me Chris. I'm on my second term as a counselor. I'm also the chairwoman of the Committee on Women within the City Council. And I took my oath as a lawyer last year, July 2020. So that was the very first time that the Supreme Court sworn in passers via Zoom. So that is quite historical. And yeah, that's it.
And I was talking to you offline, and I love this show because it's my fast track of learning about law, legal issues, and how to go about things. So I'm very interested on how did you find interest on becoming a lawyer? Where did that all begin?
Well, it all began when I was like a little kid. I would always go with my dad. My dad was a counselor as well. So I would go to this session hall and then Congress when he became a congressman. So I would just watch all these legislators. And I thought to myself that becoming a lawyer would definitely be a good stepping stone to fulfilling my public service dreams. So yeah, that's how I got into it.
And I love the fact that you are passionate about giving back. A lot of women, a lot of the youth need people like you to mentor them. And for me, I'm just learning a lot just by my research on your background. And thank you to Gino and JP for allowing me to be here. Another question I have, would you like to talk about your legal journey and perhaps what you face, maybe the challenges and how you overcome those?
Oh my gosh. So basically what happened was I entered law school. I was an above average student. And when it was time to take the bar exam, I ran at the same time for office. So, I mean, there's no surprise there. I failed in one, which was the bar exams. I was trying to do too many things all at once. But then I won the elections. So I took some time off and then studied again. Took the bar 2 years ago, 2019, and passed. I mean, at the end of the day, try not to do too many things and just focus on one thing at a time, especially for the bar exam, especially for the bar takers. Like, they have to give it 100% of their time and attention.
Right. Amazing. And I know JP and Gina have amazing questions to ask you. I know I have a lot, so I'll allow them to ask you first.
First up, I just want to say thanks again for coming on the show. I'm really excited about this episode. What Gino said he was able to get to, and we could talk about these types of topics. I feel like it's really important for people to know their rights. So I want to start out with a story. With my talking with my little cousin. My little cousin was walking home, and while she was walking home, there was a car that started honking at her, and then they rolled down the window and then just stared at her. And when she told me that experience, I start to think and read up about you that you were able to write an ordinance banning catcalling. Could you tell us about that and tell us what is considered catcalling and what can someone do when they experience this?
Sure. Thanks for that question. Definitely, that is an example of catcalling. Catcalling is a form of gender-based violence committed in public spaces. So the Safe Spaces Act and the ordinance that I authored define what catcalling is. So usually that's like when somebody whistles, shouts, or makes sexual comments towards other individuals as they usually walk by. So they're usually derisive marks. And yeah, so one clear example is what you just said about your cousin. They harass these women, these girls, and when you sometimes when you hurt the ego of the male, that's when the perpetration happens, and that's what we're trying to avoid here.
What can someone do when that happens to them? Is there
Okay, so now that there's a law that punishes it, definitely the best thing to do is to report it right away. You can either report it to a police officer or those deputized in the MMDAs, who are the anti-street harassment enforcers, or the barangay officials. You can always go to them, or any security guard of even any private establishment who witnessed it. You can also go to them for help. But basically, best is for you to go to the police and go to the women's desk, which every precinct right now has a women's desk. So just look for the women's desk and report it, so it doesn't happen to like other girls and women.
Oh, perfect. Oh, thanks for sharing that. Also, and I also want to talk about a next story that my friend experienced. One of my friends, she was basically working out in a gym, and one of the workers just started taking pictures of her without her permission. So obviously, I'm sure this happens to women all the time. What are the laws about that?
Okay, so there's a law right now that Risa Ontiveros authored. As I had mentioned, it's Republic Act 11313, which is the
Okay.
Safe Space Act.
Okay.
This basically penalizes acts like that, and in that law, it's defined under Article 2, Section 12, that when you take a photo of a woman without their consent and post it on social media, it can be considered as sexual harassment. And yeah, it violates the right to privacy and the safe space of women. So it's punishable now.
Okay. So I'm guessing this actually ties up to my next question, because I was about to ask you about not only actual stalking, but also, since we live in a digital age, there's also cyber stalking. So I'm assuming that also goes against the Safer Space Act. Is that correct?
It's covered by the Safe Space Act. Online environments are included, not just physical stalking, but cyber stalking as well. It's defined there. They define gender-based online sexual harassment to include cyber stalking and not just physical stalking. So, so that's definitely punishable as well under RA 11313.
Okay. So I'm assuming this also brings up to my next question, because I know obviously with the culture here, we love to make jokes, and sometimes there could be inappropriate jokes that could happen where a woman feels uncomfortable. What happens when that occurs to women? Is there something they could do? Should they speak up or?
Yeah, it may be normal to like joke around, but it's not right. Jokes are supposed to be funny. Jokes are not supposed to harass or degrade any person. So when a woman feels uncomfortable, and the woman should confront the perpetrator, or the bystanders should also stand up for the victim survivors of such. And it's up to the woman to tell whether the joke is degrading or dehumanizing. We
Mhm.
women have the right, and women have the right to confront their perpetrators. Sexist jokes or rape jokes is definitely a form of sexual harassment, and it shouldn't be tolerated.
Okay, okay. Now, I also want to, thanks again for sharing that. I also want to get into something else, a different subject. I know because I was just reading up a little bit on my free time, and one of my friends helping me out with these questions. They want to know the law of men and women are different when it comes to adultery and concubinage. So I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Oh, okay. So the law, those crimes, adultery and concubinage, are both crimes against chastity, punishable under the revised penal code, and it's definitely it discriminates the wives. That's for sure, because adultery is committed by the wife, and the only proof that you need is that the wife had sexual intercourse with a man other than her husband.
Oh,
So that's the only proof that you need. But with concubinage, it's committed by the husband, and the wife has to prove that the husband has either one of three. Number one, either performed sexual acts in a scandalous circumstance, kept a mistress in their conjugal home, or keeps a mistress in another place. So, like, the proof of those three, they're more stringent than adultery, which you only have to prove that the wife had sexual intercourse with another man. And also the penalty for adultery is much graver than concubinage. For adultery, it's 6 years, up to 6 years, and concubinage is only like 4 years. So definitely, there's like
wow.
inequality there.
Yeah, that definitely doesn't seem fair at all.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
one of the also questions I got from one of my friends when I posted this was about battered women syndrome. Someone asked me to ask you about this and what that is and what their rights are.
Okay. For battered woman syndrome, that's basically a psychological disorder. It's like a post-traumatic stress disorder where the woman believes that she deserves to be maltreated or deserves what the abuse that she's experiencing. So, and they choose not to report the violence that they experience because of this trauma that they've developed. So, like in law school, or we've learned that it comes in three phases. There's the tension building phase, and then the battering phase, and then lastly is the honeymoon phase or the tranquility phase. And it just keeps repeating itself until the woman feels that it's her fault. It's her fault that she's a victim of abuse, and she does not probably not even aware that she's a victim of such. And we have the Violence Against Women and Children law to protect women who suffer from this. So
Oh, okay, okay. Um, Also one of the questions I got was about maternity leave, because I want to talk about what the rights of maternity leave is, and also my friend said there are times when a woman finishes her maternity leave and the employer doesn't want to renew her contract because of that. So I just
okay,
wanted to
so the
get
maternity
yeah.
yeah, the maternity leave is there's an expanded maternity leave law, which was signed into law last 2019. So it's a very recent law on it extended the paid maternity leave of women from 60 days or 78 if it's cesarean to 105 paid leaves. So definitely that favors the woman. And also another thing that they removed was the limit to 4 children. So now it's like basically unlimited or up to whatever. Yeah, so that favors us thanks to Senator Risa who authored that bill.
Okay, okay. Perfect. Well, thanks again for answering our questions. That really helps a lot. I'm sure
Yeah, I
I
hope it's like
yeah,
informative to people who are watching right now.
definitely, because a lot of these questions I got from people I know and ask, oh, what do you want to ask her about? So I
Oh,
also want
wait.
to go on.
Sorry, I forgot to answer the other question that if the employer like removes the employee,
Yes.
That constitutes unfair labor practice. So you can report such employer to the DOLE. So that's another right that women should be aware of, that this is your privilege and the employers have to honor that.
Oh, okay. So, okay, and also this brings up to my next point because obviously it's different when you get sexually harassed in public and in the company. So, what are the two main differences that you could do? Is it the HR or when something happens in the office?
Okay, so if it's in the office, that's under the sexual anti-harassment law, which covers like the relationship between an authority and a subordinate. So they
Okay.
can file under that law, the anti-sexual harassment law. If it happens in the streets, then we have the catcalling law for that. So,
Mhm.
but either way, you still report it. For corporations, they should have a gender responsive HR team to take care of these cases of sexual harassment in the workplace.
Well, right now I just want to go on another track. Do you feel like there are any shortcomings in the legal industry today? And if they are, what do you think the solutions are?
Honestly, maybe it all boils down to accessibility.
Mhm.
Um, it, in the Philippines, it's very traditional. We have the law firm setup, which is very archaic. And then we have the public office, which is PAO. And they're very much, they're already they're filled with work. And that's even, so I feel that accessibility is a big problem. And with LegalEx, you're providing an extra platform for consultation, legal consultation, and that's going to be great because the law firms can be intimidating because it's so traditional that a regular, like a minor or millennials, they don't really like to go to that kind of setup. So with LegalX, I with my research, I found out that it's a platform where you make these basic legal services available to anybody. Just as long as you have a phone, you have
Mhm.
internet connection, that's it. And that's the future. Technology is the future, so we have to be adapting to this, like smart contracts, blockchains. I mean, those are like, wow, it's
Yeah.
going to be the future, and I'm glad that Gino has this, you and Gino created this platform, because I mean somebody ought to start it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I'm so happy you're on the show, especially during March, Women's Month. That's why we really wanted you to be here. Now, I want to go back to the topic of women's empowerment. Is this about gender equality, or is it more than that?
Honestly, I think women empowerment is about gender equality. We emphasize women because women over men have been subject to discrimination, oppression. They've also gone through exploitation, marginalization, and violence for so long simply because of their gender. So, yeah. So it is about gender equality, just to like level the playing field.
Mhm. Oh, okay. Well, thanks again. Very informative. I'll go ahead and let Gino ask you some questions as well, Attorney Gino. Um,
Hi. All right, great. My turn. Chris, Counselor Bacani, rather. Thank you
Yeah.
again for being here. We really appreciate it. When we started looking for a guest for this episode show, I had no doubt in my mind it had to be you, and we're very grateful for your saying yes. I'd also like to thank you for your story in the beginning. I'm sure, I mean, it might have been quite difficult to share that fact about you, but I don't want you to look at it that way. I think your story is very inspirational, and you should keep moving forward with that. But
Yeah,
onto
for
the
sure.
topic of yeah, onto the topic of the month, right? Women's rights.
Yeah.
Clearly you are doing a lot, but you are in a position of power. You're a counselor and you are using your power responsibly. How can we, the everyday person, the average person, really advance women's rights? How can we help the cause, so to speak? Like, what would you suggest to the people watching the show? What can they do on a day-to-day basis?
What we can do on a day-to-day basis is, we can advance women's rights by continuing to ask what they need. An important step in that direction is that we make sure that women have representation. So keep electing women in government. It's
Absolutely.
important. Yeah, it's important that women get represented in the policy and decision-making process of legislation, and continue to empower women. Like, it's not about women becoming more advanced than men. It's just becoming equal. Like, continue to empower women. And
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. As I mentioned, clearly you're at the forefront of this cause. It might be a good time to remind people. What would you say has changed with regard to women's rights in the past 5 years? And maybe can you say where do you think? How do you actually? Let's break this down. Where do you think it will go in the next 5 years? And how do you think we'll get there? How do you feel about it?
Okay, so like right now, we maybe have, like, in the global scale, we have
Mm-hmm.
less than three quarters of the legal rights that men have. So in 1970, it was like a little less than half of the rights that they had. So we're definitely progressing. We have more women in the labor force. We have smaller wage gap, greater investment in health and education. Definitely, there's progress. But is it enough? I don't think it's not enough. We still have a long way to go. The problem is all this economic progress could be wiped out because of the pandemic. So all the hard-won achievements could just get shattered to pieces if government doesn't intervene. Like,
Of
how I see
course.
this in the next 5 years is it should be progressing if government intervenes, because the pandemic has definitely slowed this growth. In right now, 70% of community health workers are female, and 2.7 trillion annually are contributed to the global economy by women, but only 50% of those are paid. So the other
Mm-hmm.
50% is unpaid labor. So there's really like a long way to go. But I'm definitely optimistic about it.
That's great. Considering everything you said, would it be possible or even right to pinpoint what could be perceived as the biggest challenge in the women's rights movement now? Is it awareness? Is it accountability? Is it action?
Um, I would say the biggest challenge right now, like the most imminent one, would be the ongoing shadow pandemic of
Mm-hmm.
gender-based violence that we have to deal with. Because of the lockdown, most women are experiencing domestic abuse. The numbers are like rising, just
Yeah.
like how COVID is also going up. And they're so vulnerable. The young women and girls are so vulnerable, and they're more open to online sexual exploitation. Which, so we have to raise awareness regarding this matter, that it's the collateral damage of the pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah. You
So
mentioned
yeah,
the online sorry.
definitely raise awareness with what's happening,
Mm-hmm.
and for government again to intervene. So government plays a big role here. Yeah.
Of course. You mentioned online harassment. That obviously leads us to technology. For what good it
Yeah.
gives us, it does have a negative effect as well. How do you feel about all the new technology nowadays? Is it more advantageous? Is it creating more problems that we're having trouble dealing with? Like, how do you feel about technology right now with regards to all these things happening?
I would say it's definite. It has its advantages and disadvantages. I don't know which weighs more, but right now, definitely the advantage would be accessibility to information, easier access of reporting, or you have your camera, you can take a photo of any abuse that's happening to you, easier to record things. But at the same time, it's also more prone to online sexual exploitation of women and children.
Uh-huh.
So it's like, there really are disadvantages, and we have to just make sure that we are aware that that's happening, and to kind of put more roadblocks for that. Like online perpetrators should be punished and
Of course.
should really be. Sorry.
No, I just said I was agreeing with you.
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
it has both its ups and downs. So we just have to raise awareness for the disadvantages of technology. But like LegalEx, for example, is one of the advantage of technology that can advance, legal rights or women's causes and advocacies.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. We do hope that that's just the case. Let's go back a little closer to home. Clearly, this challenge you picked is quite uphill. Like, what made you decide to tackle this subject? How did you get into the field? If, for example, like, why did you become a counselor, and then why are you targeting all these causes? Like, is there something you want to say? Is there something you want to speak out about?
No, for me, like I was raised by a really strong woman. It's a very matriarchal home for me. And it's just as I grew older, I realized that not everybody experienced like being empowered like me as a child. And I just want to like voice that out, be the voice for like other women who can't speak, empower women. I mean, what does empowering a woman really means? It means letting a woman make decisions for themselves and let them have a happy, fulfilled life. And how do you define that, right? It's up to the woman to make that
Yep.
decision. What makes them happy? Like, is it gonna be food on the table? Is it gonna be being a housewife? Is it gonna be housing conditions? Is it gonna be free from domestic violence? Or is it the ability to work and have a career? Or is it helping people in your community? Is it serving the government? If you feel like you're able to do something about what you think is a happy and fulfilling life, then you are empowered. So that's just the message I want girls and women to have, is that it is up to you. It should be your choice. Like, that's what's the most important thing, that you're part of the decision-making process.
That's
And
fantastic.
being in the city council, I'm able to voice that out. And I've actually had a few bumps in the road while I was passing this ordinance of catcalling, when a few male counselors were telling me that it wasn't needed, or that it was very misogynistic comments. And I just thought to myself, if I wasn't there, who would defend women, or like even legislate anything that could advance their rights? So it's important that you have representation in policy making. So
That's
that's why
amazing.
I'm here.
Obviously, I can't speak for women, but on behalf of the Filipinos, I would take this moment to say thank you for all of that. What you're doing is clearly amazing. Let's
Thanks.
just kind of go away from government. You've spoken a bit about it. It's very inspiring, very impressive. But I'd like also to let the people know that Councillor Bacani is also somewhat of a social entrepreneur. Um, in preparing for this interview, I found out that Chris has a brand that she's putting forward, but beyond that, she's using this avenue to do more good in this area. And I think that deserves mention. And I'd like to give you the floor to talk about it, because I think that deserves to be plugged in so many words. But yeah,
Thank
please,
you.
Chris.
Thank you, Gino. Actually, I just, during the pandemic, you know how like we were all probably just glued to our phones and like thinking of how we can make this world a better place and all of that. I mean, we had so much time. So I started like just conceptualizing something that, could, because it's not sustainable to just keep donating money. Like I needed
Yes.
something, I needed a business so that that could promote women's rights. So I thought to myself, if I put up a brand selling like women's clothing line or a fitness clothing line, and I would put all the profits from all those sales to advancing women's rights. So it's still, right now I'm still in the process of developing the whole idea and testing products and stuff. But thank you for mentioning it. There's
You're
actually a name
welcome.
already. It's called Hipletics. So add me on
Athletics. That's
Instagram.
awesome. Yes, we will. We will make sure people do that. Counselor Bacani, we won't take up too much of your time. I just wanted to give you this last opportunity to close up. Um, is there anything you want to tell the people watching, anything the people will watch, the people who will watch later? What can the everyday person do again to, just do the right thing on a daily basis? It doesn't have to be always filing a case. It doesn't always have to be filing suit or anything. There has to be something that's people are capable to do from the everyday standpoint. Is there anything you'd like to say about that? Anything you'd like to
Okay.
elaborate on before we let you go?
Okay, for this, like, yeah, you mentioned that most people would just hire a lawyer when it's already like push comes to shove and
Yeah.
you're already at the, you should always see it as like going to a doctor for an executive checkup. Your
Mm-hmm.
approach should be, preventative. So instead of to avoid litigation, because you don't want to actually litigate.
Yeah.
What you want to do is have good housekeeping, right? Like with property law, estate law, taxes. These are things that you can actually get a lawyer for without waiting for, getting sued and stuff. So yeah, we should change the mindset of people that you don't need to be sued just to have a lawyer. You
Mhm.
can actually already have one, start engaging in legal counseling so that you will be aware of your rights, and just it's just cleaner that way. It's just less messy. So download the LegalEx app for this
Yay.
legal help. Yeah. And my last word, just my last message to everyone listening would be, please don't forget to register to vote. Register, yeah, to vote. Exercise your right of suffrage. We have, I think, 200 days left for you to register. That's a long time. So no excuses. Participate in this and choose leaders who will fight for women's rights and equality.
Wow.
Great. Thank you, Chris. That was incredible. We really appreciate you being on today. I'll turn
Yes,
it
Thank
turn it
you.
over to
Thank you,
Mafe again.
guys.
That was amazing
I
stuff.
I'm in awe. It's such a perfect person to have on our first episode of 2021 and also for Women's Month. Thank you, Counselor Chris Bacani, for being that voice for women and also the Filipinos, because we need to be educated. We need to learn from people like you. And it's something that, resonates with me. Just to recap, raising awareness for women is a passion of mine. And just seeing like minded women like you who are on the platform to create those decisions or even have the possibility to allow us having a voice through you. And this is a joke that I always share with my family that yes, I am not a singer, but if we have a voice, that means you can create a difference, right? So
Definitely, definitely. Thank you
and
so
I
much. Thank you for
yes,
having me.
thank you. And I
Thank
think
you
it goes
too.
to show when you create habits, it creates your future. So be careful
Yeah.
of your choices. Like Counselor Chris told us today, be that inspiration, be that change, and don't forget to vote. Don't forget to
Yep.
sign up or register. And thank you everyone for tuning in. Please do like and share LegalX, all the social media platforms, and share this episode because everybody needs to hear what was said today. So, with that,
Thank
guys,
you.
thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode of Legal X Live. Thank you.
Bye.